Good afternoon. We're in the season of Advent, one of my very favorite seasons to work with children, and personally, I just love this season. Often it's called the Christmas season, but technically in the church, the Christmas season doesn't start until Christmas Day. And then it continues through Epiphany, which is January 6th, when we celebrate the Magi's visit to Jesus. But what I wanted to do today was give you a chance to see how we can use so many teachable moments with our kids and grandkids and nephews and nieces and students throughout this time of year. So I'm in a classroom at a church, and I want to just show you some things around the building that have to do with Christmas. You see them everywhere, and also that teach lessons for children. So there are so many symbols at Christmas time. Many of the common symbols you'll see are nativity scenes. This one is a soft one made for little guys and gals. You'll see another over here. This is how the children left it set up yesterday. Here's a puzzle nativity scene, which we worked on yesterday with several children. So just a few examples. There's another one that I just love is the Little People nativity. I don't get any royalties from them, but I just love their set. I think it's very cute. And look, the angel on the roof even lights up and sings. See the star beneath the angel? We'll talk about that in just a moment. I have another box that has some ducky nativities in it, nativity scene pieces in it, even a baby Jesus duck. And I even have in this classroom something from Hobby Lobby, which was a magnetic nativity scene set. So you can use that on your refrigerator. We just use it on a cookie sheet since we don't have a refrigerator here. So let's talk about, first of all, the nativity sets. They include pieces from lots of different, from the two different birth narratives, the Matthew narrative and the Luke narrative. Now, one of the narratives includes the story of the shepherds. The other includes the story of the Magi. And so it's important that when we're talking about it with kids, we can differentiate, but they're all mixed together in this set. Is that bad? No, but they are two separate stories. So just understand that they are. So in nativity sets, you're almost always going to see a star somewhere if there's a creche. So for example, this one has a star. Let's see about this one. This one has a star, I pointed out. And then we even have a flannel graph one on the wall. Good old school flannel graph, look. This one has a star, okay? You also see an angel. Well, there's a star that's often used in the Christmas narratives. When you see it even in secular society, oftentimes you'll see a star at the top of a tree and things like that. The reason we have the star is, you guessed it, somebody followed the star. The Magi followed the star to find baby Jesus or toddler Jesus by the time they got there, when they reached him at the house. So that's why you see stars. So whenever you see stars throughout the Christmas time, point that out to your children. Show them in the Bible where it comes from and let them know. And count how many stars you find through the day and things like that. Another kind of star symbol that we see a lot are through poinsettias. Now, some people call them poinsettias. This particular wreath we have hung on some doors here. It's flannel, but it has poinsettias on it. Poinsettias are star-shaped flower. They actually originate in Mexico. It's a pretty common thing. There's a whole parable kind of thing of the poinsettia that you can read that's kind of neat. But the color, the traditional color, is red, which reminds us of the sacrifice of Jesus, his blood. Of course, you can be age appropriate when you talk about this with little ones, but you could just say Jesus gave his life on the cross, and that's why the color is red. So when we have poinsettias at church, when we give them as gifts, when we see them at the store, or even in store windows, remember they're star-shaped, which reminds us of the Magi following the star, and they also are red, which reminds us later of Jesus' sacrifice. Another common thing you'll see, which I pointed out, are angels. That's another thing you'll see at the top of the trees. Oftentimes are angels, and angels really matter in the story because the angels came to visit several people. Angels came to visit Mary to tell her that she was going to have a baby named in his name and all that fun stuff, even though she wasn't married yet. An angel visited Joseph, he thought was a dream, and told him to go ahead and marry Mary and to name the baby Jesus because he would save his people from their sins. Also, the angels visited the shepherds in the field and told them to go find the baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. So when you see angels in the story, angels and shepherds are oftentimes mixed because they're both part of the story. You'll see, here we go, here's our little angel that's singing again. Shepherds Sometimes they leave Joseph out of these scenes. So this one you see just a shepherd and a Mary, and there's no Joseph. We know that God is his heavenly father, but for whatever reason, maybe they gave Joseph a shepherd's staff. Speaking of that, let's talk about shepherds. So shepherds in the story, it's neat that God used shepherds because shepherds were not well-liked people. They weren't wealthy. They weren't, all well-educated and things like that. They were just commonplace people. In fact, people didn't often want to be beside them because they were stinky. They've been out with the sheep and all that yuckiness. But shepherds are important. Jesus is called the Good Shepherd. There's lots the whole Psalm 23 and all of that, the shepherd imagery of protecting us. Well, there's another thing that reminds us of shepherds that we see all throughout Christmas time and the Advent season, and they are candy canes. If you'll notice, a candy cane is shaped like a shepherd's staff. This one has kind of an extra curl. Usually the staff would be a little more open than this, but nevertheless, it could be used to grab a little sheep that had wandered and pull it back, or to defend it from a herding animal. Also, when you turn it upside down, it makes the letter J for Jesus. Also, a candy cane has red and white stripes. You can read the whole story of the candy cane. There are a few stories out, even some books that talk about it, but the red, again, symbolizes Jesus's sacrifice. And you can even go a little further and say the white tells for how we're washed as white as snow. So that's a staff for the shepherds. Here's another one that has a staff, or the crook. And then that also stands for, it reminds us of candy canes in the story. Very good. So we've got angels, we've done shepherds, we've done candy canes, we've done poinsettias, we've done stars. Let's talk about evergreen. Okay, so when you see trees, other than the non-traditional trees like sometimes upside down ones are even green, white trees or silver trees or all of those, most of the trees you see and most of the colors you see this season are evergreen, like this one. Evergreen, you see the green. We have a little tree village. We even have some leftover trees from VBS that were made out of cardboard, 3D, thanks to that awesome volunteer who did that. But evergreen. Evergreen is also used on wreaths. Let me show you this. Oops, wrong light. This wreath right here also has evergreen and a few other things in it. So evergreen, what does it stand for? Well, evergreen reminds us that God is always with us. In fact, Jesus was called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And God is with us all the time. Evergreen, when it's not cut, like a Christmas tree, lasts forever, unless something weird happens to it, like bugs or something. What I mean by lasts forever is the green stays there. It doesn't change colors in the fall like many leaves do when they change color and then they fall off and die and they regrow in the spring. Evergreen trees stay green. They're always green, just like God is always with us. So keep that in mind. Another thing we saw out here was a wreath. And wreaths are, and we've seen a couple of these. Let me show you another. Another thing about wreaths is that they are round, very much like the symbol of the evergreen. This room also has a wreath. I'll show you. Very much like the evergreen, the symbol of a wreath is round. See if I can draw a circle this way. It's round. Many times if you go to a wedding, during the wedding, they'll talk about when you put on your wedding ring, about how it's round and it goes forever. There's no stopping point, like the love is everlasting. Very similar concept with the idea of a wreath. It's round. Just like the evergreen tree reminds us that God is always with us, the ring that's on a wreath reminds us as a circle that it goes on forever. God's love continues forever. Very good, huh? What about presents? We love presents. I love presents. Do you love presents? We know our kids love presents, and oftentimes this time of year, a present turns into, one present turns into many, which turns into a wish list, which means a meeting with Santa and all of that. It's not necessarily bad. We do need to help kids not be, greedy and things like that. But presents are such a fun part of the holiday season, of the Advent season, of giving gifts. Well, that's great to give gifts. What we need to remember, though, is that the reason we give gifts are a couple of reasons. One is because Jesus is the greatest gift. That's a great thing to teach children. Jesus is the best gift. If Jesus had not come as a baby and then lived a perfect life and sacrificed himself on the cross and been raised from the dead, we would not have the chance to be forgiven of our sins. There's no way we could make up for all of our bad choices and sins. So Jesus was the best gift. We also give gifts because of the Magi, the guys that came, followed the star we talked about earlier. The Magi came and brought gifts to Jesus of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, we don't know that there were 3 of them. There probably were more for sure. But oftentimes in nativity sets, you'll see 3, I think because of the 3 gifts. So we give gifts for a couple of reasons. One is to show others we love them. Another is because Jesus was the best gift. Another is because the Magi gave gifts as well. And we like to give gifts because it's fun. But also, this time of year is like a big birthday party. Your kids understand birthday parties. If they've ever been to one, had one, whatever, they understand birthday parties. Birthday parties involve cake. They involve presents. They involve decorations. They involve invitations, all these fun things. And those are involved in the Christmas celebration. So I bet you decorate your house, or at least you see decorations throughout. Cake, let's say baked goods. Lots of baked goods around this time of year. Presents for sure. Decorations we talked about. Invitations, maybe not invitations besides maybe to parties and things. Parties, get it? Birthday party, Christmas party. But also, guess what? You do Christmas cards. A lot of people do. It's just kind of like an invitation. But gifts are part of that birthday celebration. So we can give gifts in honor of Jesus. In fact, I challenge you to do a birthday cake on Christmas and sing happy birthday to Jesus. What a great way to remind ourselves on that fun day that it's not about us and about our presence. It's about the birth of the baby, Jesus. Another thing that you see this time of year are bells. You know, the ring the bells songs and things like that. If you go to any store, you'll see the big bells things. A lot of people think these are all about reindeer. Well, sure, reindeer, in the legends, they certainly have bells. But bells are rung oftentimes at churches. They have been rung for centuries and centuries to remind people to say, hey, it's time to come to church. Something big is happening. To make big announcements back before texting and social media and things like that, they would ring the church bells, the big bells you hear in churches, so that they could announce something special. Bells are often rung in churches on Christmas Day, also on Resurrection Sunday, on Easter. So bells are a very important part and a good reminder of the celebration that we have to worship Jesus on that day. Let's see. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about. I'm sure there are other things. If you have questions about other things that we use at Christmas and would like to know the significance behind it, just ask me. I'll try to find out and tell you more. Have a wonderful, 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 wonderful Advent season and a very Merry Christmas.